This Late Night Linux Family podcast is made possible by our patrons. Go to latenightlinux.com/support for details of how you can join them. Support us on Patreon for access to ad-free episodes and early releases. That's latenightlinux.com/support. Hello and welcome to episode 365 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 15th of December 2025. I'm Joe, and with me are Phelim.
Hello.
Graham.
Good evening.
And Will.
Hello.
An episode a day for a year. Extraordinary. We talked fairly recently about Google releasing the source code for Android and how there was a big delay for QPR1. Well, QPR2 came out, and within a day or two, the source code was released. So I think that maybe we worried too soon on that one.
Unlike Mozilla, there are people at Google listening to us.
Well, maybe not us, but the community at least.
This is very reassuring news. I agree, and I like it. And I hope it means that we were just being far too cynical and skeptical about their motives.
Or we shocked them into reality.
That's more likely.
I think so.
The speculation at the time was that they were holding the source code back because there were features in it that they didn't want everyone to have. And we said at the time, well, if that's true, they're going to just do that every time, aren't they? Well, there were some features in this QPR2 release, but they've released the source code anyway. So maybe someone was just off work or forgot or was a bit useless, or who knows. You know, you don't always necessarily have to just jump to the worst possible explanation for things.
Yes, you do.
365 episodes says you do.
Yeah. The Google release manager got yellow blindness and he couldn't see any of the post-it notes around his monitor.
Well, either way, I think you've got to judge them by their recent actions. And the recent actions are back to normal. Release goes out, source code goes out within a day or two. So hopefully it means custom ROMs can continue. But I am also still skeptical about that, to be honest. The successful end of the kernel Rust experiment. So this came out of the Linux Maintainers Summit, and LWN had a very short piece about it. And then subsequently we saw the patch come in, and not much has changed. They've just taken away the experimental flag, essentially. And it looks like Rust is here to stay in the kernel.
Good, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that they have to move with the times. And if young people are more interested in writing Rust code, then you have to let them write it, don't you?
I find that highly unlikely that it's young people, but yes, people who are new may be doing that, yes.
Well, young is a relative term, isn't it?
Yes, and also I don't see that many kernel developers wandering around the street, but yes.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's not that many people who do kernel development.
I don't think there's that many people that do Rust development, but fair enough.
Well, my point being that if there's not many people doing kernel development, you've got to take what you can, essentially. Beggars can't be choosers and all that. And if it pisses off the far right wankers, then that's just extra bonus as far as I'm concerned. Goodbye, Microsoft. Schleswig-Holstein relies on open source and saves millions. So this is a story we've been following for what feels like years at this point. And they have basically replaced most of their Office software with LibreOffice. And yes, it's costing them quite a bit in training and everything, but they're saving more than that by not paying the licenses. So this is a great success story for open source.
No, it isn't, because this is not possible. Microsoft has said so, so clearly this is all a giant lie.
Right. Well, there are some people moaning as well that, you know, it doesn't work the same and blah, 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 but, you know.
Where's the extra days holiday I used to get every month when they were trying to install Windows updates on my machine and it broke? That was brilliant, and I don't have it anymore.
Well, I don't think they've switched to Linux yet, so they've still got that, so that's fine. They've still got the Windows problems. But it sounds like that's the eventual goal, is to switch away from Windows. But they're doing it right, aren't they? They're doing the applications first, and the big application that a government uses is Office software. And so swap that out to open source first, and then once that's all working, then you can think about swapping out the underlying OS.
I think that's a really smart way of doing it. And I like that they're talking about the fact that it's not free and that there is an investment in training. I think that should be acknowledged up front, because then you kind of disarm all the naysayers when they say, but did you think that you're going to have to do these things? You say, yes, we did do that and we factored it in and it's still cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. So let's not be cynical about this. Let's not worry that Microsoft are going to come and send their salespeople in and all the rest of it. It's going to be fine. It's going to be a great success. And we're seeing more and more of this across Europe and the world generally. And at least in small part, this is thanks to America First policies, shall we say. Elementary OS 8.1 available now, except not as we record this. So I got the press release email minutes before we started recording, and I haven't actually read through all of it yet. It's a very long blog post, but I think one of the headlines is it's Wayland by default now, accessibility stuff, privacy stuff. There's just loads in there. Definitely check it out. I'm going to put this in the second episode that we're recording today, so if you're listening on the main feeds, it'll be out. There'll be a link to this blog post. Go and check it out. If you're listening on the Patreon feed, the link won't be in the show notes yet, but I'll update it once the embargo lifts. And I spoke to Danielle about this. She asked me to point out that if you are a supporter of Elementary OS, you get early access to the ISOs. So anyway, it's a very opinionated Linux desktop experience that every time I mention it, I just say, check it out. See if you like it. It's the kind of desktop that you're either going to love or you're not going to love. And the only way you're going to find out is by trying it out. We haven't done discoveries for ages. Let's do some now. Will, better history.
It's been a while since we've knocked on Firefox. I hadn't realised quite how terrible the history in Firefox is. It'll only show you one visit per URL. So let's imagine that your kids have got such acidic piss that they have eaten through a stainless steel bolt that holds the toilet seat onto your toilet. And you can't just buy this thing. You have to buy an entirely new toilet seat. So you go looking around the internet for toilet seats, and I found one on, I think, the Screwfix website, and then lost it again in a sea of tabs, couldn't find it. Oh, fine. I'll just go back into my search history. But I couldn't remember exactly which one it was. And so looking at the history in, browse history in Firefox, I couldn't tell what the previous times I had visited a website were and a particular URL. And this has not really caused me a lot of problems in the past, but it caused me an enormous problem once. And so I went to look for a solution to this. And I would like to say that Firefox Better History add-on is the solution to that. And it kind of is. But ultimately, it isn't. It's still not very good. The way in which Firefox manages all of its history seems to be in a SQLite file. And the internet suggests that if you really need fine-grained history, you have to use the SQLite client to go through all of that in Firefox and find out exactly when you visited something at exactly what time forever. So it's a huge pain in the arse. It's never really caused me a lot of a problem, but now I've seen it, I can't get over it. I wish it was better, and Better History is a step in the right direction, but it's still not very good.
waylandutani.com/products/toilet seats for you. Okay, I installed this because I also hate both the history and the bookmarks manager in Firefox. They are two atrocious components of it that seem stuck somewhere in the late 90s and have had zero interest applied to them. This kind of works. It seems to be site dependent on how well it works. Like if I look at one of my days, I have obviously looked at a map a few times. So I have a whole bunch of OpenStreetMap tabs, which are just labeled OpenStreetMap, and then a whole lot of Google Maps ones, which are also just labeled Google Maps. So exactly zero use as a history item. But if you look at something like YouTube, you actually get the title of the video that you're looking at, and that is actually better than pretty much YouTube's history of it, to be honest. It's as comparable to it. But yeah, I mean, it's still not great, is it?
No.
Phelim, Commodore 64 is back?
Yeah, I mean, I never had one. I used to go up to my pal's house and we'd spend, which game we playing? This one. start loading the tape, then go out, have a full football game and come back in and then realize that the tape had fucked up somewhere and then get really annoyed. And, in the space of an evening after school, coming home around 3-ish, we'd probably get 1 or maybe 2 games in if we were lucky. Well, somebody from one of the retro YouTube channels has decided that getting together with the community, they were going to buy all the available trademarks from whoever was holding the Commodore stuff. And it turned out a Dutch company was holding it, and they thought they could say, oh, we'd like to license these to get a Christmas release of maybe a kit that we could do. And we'd pay you money to use the titles, blah, blah, blah. And the Dutch guys went, looks like you actually know what you're doing with this. Maybe you should just buy the whole thing from us. And then they organized a crazy setup of doing that. And there's a video following the guy as he goes to buy the actual titles and stuff. And they have an absolutely awesome looking kit that's coming out. There's a gold one that you can get, which I actually don't like, but they've got the original beige one, which I quite honestly think looks better than the original beige one. And I never had one, and I would never liked it because I had a BBC and mine said it had more memory, and I used to slag my mate about it, but equally he had way better games than I did. So I was always slightly bitter about it. But the whole idea about this is the fact that they want to make a sort of they use that horrible term digital detox, but essentially it's a low power computer with a fixed set of memory. It's not connected to the internet, and you can actually write some cool stuff on it, and it's to get people back into enjoying what they're doing and not be stuck in shitey internet land. And it looks really cool.
Okay, this episode is sponsored by Tailscale. Go to tailscale.com/LNL. Tailscale is an easy-to-deploy, zero-config VPN that allows you to build simple networks across complex infrastructure. Sign up, install Tailscale on the devices you want to connect, and you can get going in a few minutes. Whether you want to connect back to your home LAN while traveling, send backups to a friend's house, or securely access your Kubernetes cluster, Tailscale combines the power of WireGuard with simple installation and configuration for a seamless experience. Tailscale's personal plan is free forever. You'll get up to 100 devices and 3 users at no cost with no credit card required. So support the show and try Tailscale for free today at tailscale.com/LNL. If you'd like to bring Tailscale to work, use code LATENIGHTLINUX for 3 free months of any paid plan. Thousands of companies have already made the switch. That's code LATENIGHTLINUX. Graham, Pi Finder.
Yeah, so caveat on this is I haven't got one, but as soon as I've got a bit of time, I'm going to order the kit. What it is a device that will tell you where your telescope is pointing in the sky. And it's a completely open source project. The PCBs, the 3D prints for the case, and the software solver that runs on it. You can buy kits. And I've got an old-fashioned Russian telescope that I sometimes get out on a cold night and point at the sky. And I've never wanted a go-to telescope, because a go-to telescope basically is kind of automated. You select the star that you want to look at, and the telescope moves to it. I want something that's a little bit better than I can never be bothered to mount the mount in the right place so that it makes it easy to find things. So I'm always struggling to find the things that I'm trying to look at. Put this Pi Finder device on your telescope. It takes a photo of what you're looking at, and then its software works out what you're actually looking at. And then you say, I want to find something else, and then it will tell you where to move, and it'll update as you move the telescope. And it looks wonderful. I think it looks like a great project, and it looks ideal for the kind of way that I use telescopes a few times a year, getting it out, and also a cool project to build yourself and put together.
It's quite expensive, though. It's $540 assembled.
Yeah.
Or $300 for the bits. Does that? I'm assuming this involves a Raspberry Pi, otherwise it wouldn't be called Pi Finder, right?
Yeah, that's right. It does, and it doesn't include the Pi for that price either. So it is a pricey. Yeah. I saw that the 3D printed parts, for example, which I could skip, they were $66.
Right.
So it is on the pricey side. And of course, you could do it yourself. I haven't looked to see if they've made the schematics available, the PCBs for you to print. But yeah, it is expensive.
Could you not use SkyMap on your phone, which I believe is open source? It is Google SkyMap, but it's in F-Droid, so it must be open source.
Yeah, and I've got apps on my phone But there's one thing holding your phone in your hand and then thinking that you're pointing the scope at it, and then another thing for the scope. So I imagine you attach this thing to your telescope. I've not done it yet. And then you calibrate it so that the thing that you know is exactly in the middle of your telescope then becomes the thing exactly in the middle of this Pi Finder device. So that wherever you move the telescope, even if you're not looking through the viewfinder, is where it's pointing at. If you're holding your phone in your hand, it's one thing to kind of look and think, well, that's in the right place-ish, and then look through the viewfinder when you know that when everything's so magnified, the slightest movement takes you a long way away from what you're trying to see.
Yeah, when I'm out and about on a clear night and I look up and I think, is that Mars? Is that Jupiter? And then I hold my phone up and it sort of vaguely corresponds. So yeah, it's not ideal. This Pi Finder thing is going to be a lot more accurate, yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you're trying to find galaxies or other more distant objects than the planets, although if you want to, even trying to capture Mars in a telescope, it's a bit tricky to kind of dial it in. It's fine if you want to look up at it, but with me anyway, I'm weaving the telescope across the sky, trying to catch a glimpse of a bright object go across the viewfinder.
I have got quite a lot of old hardware, including some old tablets. I've got an old Nexus 9 and an old Galaxy Tab S2, which are both just pretty much obsolete at this point. They were just languishing in a drawer. I wanted to buy a clock, and then I thought, what if I could turn those tablets into a clock? And it turns out, obviously, there are apps for that. And so Full Screen Clock is on the Play Store. And it's just exactly what you'd expect. You install this app. I've disconnected the tablet from any sort of network, plugged it in, propped it up, and now I've just got a full screen clock.
Hang on, you disconnect it from the internet. So how does it get a NTP source for that then?
Well, I'm not that bothered. The clock is relatively accurate right now. I'm sure it'll be accurate for a while. It might drift a little bit and I'll have to reconnect it at some point.
Well, I at least hope you put one of those really horrible hanging devices, where you have to try and fit the clock over a nail, but it never quite fits it, and then the clock falls down into the cooker hob, later on at about a time when you're cooking pasta.
No.
Well, that's just boring.
Well, the Nexus 9 has got one of those folio cases, I think they call it, like a folding case thing that you can prop it up, so that was fine.
So you just drove a nail through it? Oh, for fuck's sake.
No. And my Samsung Galaxy Tab S2, the case for that is just, a rubber case or whatever. So I had to put 2 screws into my bass trap that I made in the studio. So a bass trap, it's basically a wooden frame with rock wool in it and some fabric over it.
You need to put photos in the show notes because you're not selling it quite what it actually is.
Well, it's floor to ceiling and about half a meter, no, maybe a bit more than that, across. I've got 2 of them anyway. My studio is far too disgracefully messy to post photos, sorry. But so I'm looking at my clock now next to my calendar and it's great. I have seen other people do this before. I'm sure this is not news to anyone, but it keeps the screen on for as long as you want it to be on. And it's just a basic clock and it's exactly what I wanted. And I feel like those tablets now actually have another use long term.
It's quite a good idea because I actually went out and bought a clock that is set by that, that long wave clock thing, transmitter. There's one in Europe and there's one in, I think, the UK or something. And it was a pain in the arse because I had to actually find somewhere that had signal for it. And this is an annoyingly simpler solution for it. But also that clock has one of them hanging nail things that it falls off the wall if it don't do it right.
Right.
So when I have to change the battery, it's always a bit of a, will it make it? Will it won't? Who knows?
Well, this could work on an old phone as well, an old Android phone, which I'm sure people have got plenty of in drawers. If you wanted to put that on your desk, maybe. Will, Clasp.
If you use much of the Google ecosystem, you probably would have come across Google Apps Script before. We use it on the show to run one of the news bots. I use it for a variety of other things where you just want something to exist on the web that is a script. And when you post something to it, the script runs and you get some output. And you don't want to pay hosting and you don't really want to maintain infrastructure. For that stuff, Google Apps Script is really useful. It also integrates with Google Docs, or specifically Google Spreadsheets, really nicely as well. And so you can integrate your script into a spreadsheet incredibly easily. So we use it on the show because in our Telegram group, we run /news and post a link, and a bot runs and puts a link into a spreadsheet for Joe to review later on. And all of that is backed into Google Apps Script. And for the longest time, I have been editing those scripts in the AppScript UI, which is a kind of really basic text editor with a little bit of completion. And in order to maintain version control, I've been copying and pasting that out of the editor there into a document and then saving it and sticking it in Git somewhere. Well, it turns out that Google have got a project called Clasp, which means all of the copying and pasting that I've been doing for years can go away. It authenticates against Google and then allows you to write your code locally, test your code locally, and then push it as if you were deploying it to production into Google at the latest version, and then run that latest version. So it really enables like more classic developer workflows for Google Apps Script to do development and debugging and testing on your local machine, and then just deploy to Google Apps Script and have it do the work. So yeah, if you do use Google Apps Script and you are frustrated by the workflow, then check out Clasp. I think it will save you a lot of effort.
Thanks so much for this, Will. I do actually use Google Apps Script for our home groceries budget. I think for the last 10 years or more. We have a Google form where we put in our shopping that fills in a spreadsheet, and I use Google Apps Script to check that against a budget and email us about whether we're doing well or over budget, and we rely on it.
Hashtag too much cheese.
Yeah, it works really well. The thing is that even with something so simple, Google's always changing its API, so I'm always having to go in, and I can never remember what I've done, and I'm always having to hack around. So something like this would be brilliant.
It says to get started, try out the Code Lab, and then it says you can also try Clasp in Gitpod, a one-click online IDE for GitHub. I had never heard of Gitpod.
Me neither.
Yeah, presumably this means it's quite well integrated with GitHub then.
This is the first I've ever heard of Gitpod, but it suggests that you could edit your files using GitHub and their built-in editor, and then deploy straight from GitHub back into Google Apps Script. That sounds pretty powerful. This could well be a find for another day. I think I should spend some time looking into exactly what Gitpod can do for us, and I'll report back in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Right, well, we better get out of here then. We'll be back next week when it'll be our review of the year. But until then, I've been Joe.
I've been wrong.
I've been right.
And I've been Will.
See you later.